What if I told you that some of the most powerful medicines you could possibly use aren't locked behind a pharmacy counter or sitting on a drugstore shelf, but are growing wild in ditches, abandoned lots, field edges, and maybe even your own backyard? These are the plants our grandparents recognized on sight, the ones they could identify by smell, by leaf shape, by the way they grew after a rain. They are the plants that helped heal soldiers on battlefields, the plants that carried families through winters and outbreaks, and the plants that served as the local clinic for communities that had no hospitals, no pharmacies, and no quick access to modern care. And the truth is, many of these plants were never forgotten because they stopped working. They were forgotten because we stopped looking for them, stopped learning their names, and replaced the wisdom of observation with the convenience of a label on a bottle. Most people don't realize this, but while we run to the drugstore for every cut, cough, sting, ache, and irritated patch of skin, there are plants humans have leaned on for thousands of years, and many of them have now been explored by modern research in ways that echo what traditional healers observed long ago. That doesn't mean a plant replaces professional medical care, and it doesn't mean you should self-diagnose or experiment recklessly. It means something simpler and more empowering. The natural world has been offering support for a very long time, and when you learn to recognize a few key plants, you begin to see that medicine isn't always rare or expensive. Often it's common, overlooked and growing right, where people step every day. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to 20 forgotten medicinal plants that can completely change the way you think about natural healing, self-reliance, and the knowledge that's been hiding in plain sight. As we go through this list, remember one key rule. Always verify plant identification before using anything, be mindful of allergies and individual sensitivity, and treat this information as education that helps you ask better questions and make wiser choices. Calendula, also known as pot marigold, a bright orange flower that looks like sunshine, but carries a reputation that was earned in serious times. Calendula has one of the most battle-tested histories in herbal tradition, especially for the skin. In eras when infection could turn a small cut into a major problem, people paid close attention to what helped wounds stay clean, calm, and supported through the healing process. Calendula became one of those trusted plants because it was accessible, easy to grow, and consistently useful. Calendula is rich in triterpenoids like faradiol, amyrins, lupiol, flavonoids, quercetin, isorhamnetin, carotenoids, saponins and polyphenols, along with essential oils, phenolic acids, sterols and polysaccharides, which give it anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and wound-healing properties, making it great for skincare. When you read older herbal texts, calendula shows up again and again as a plant associated with soothing irritated skin, supporting tissue comfort, and helping the body's natural repair process move forward instead of getting stuck in inflammation. Calendula didn't earn its reputation because it was rare. It earned it because it was reliable. It grows easily in garden beds, borders, and containers, producing orange and yellow blooms for months, and those flowers contain plant compounds that have been researched for their soothing, anti-inflammatory, and skin-supportive properties. That's why calendula is still used today in many natural skincare products like creams, salves, and balms. And one of the simplest traditional preparations is calendula-infused oil, where dried petals are steeped in a carrier oil and then strained. That infused oil can be used on its own for dry skin and irritation, or it can be thickened into a balm using beeswax, creating a practical, shelf-stable salve many people keep in a home herbal first aid kit. Calendula largely faded from mainstream medical attention not because it stopped being useful, but because it can't be patented, mass-produced into a new invention, or marketed as a miracle in a way that benefits large pharmaceutical systems. Even so, calendula remains one of the most practical plants you can grow if you want a gentle, beginner-friendly herb that feels like an old friend, quietly useful, always blooming, and always ready. Next is sea buckthorn, a plant that looks like it belongs in a harsh mountain landscape because that's exactly where it thrives. Sea buckthorn is a thorny shrub with bright orange berries that have been used for centuries in Tibetan, Russian, and Chinese traditions, especially for supporting skin and mucous membranes. This is not just a folktale plant. Sea buckthorn has gained modern attention because of its unique oils. Both the berries and the seeds produce oils that contain a rare mix of fatty acids and antioxidants, and researchers have explored these compounds for their relationship to skin barrier function and dryness-related discomfort. Sea buckthorn became particularly interesting to scientists because it's a plant built for extreme conditions, and plants that survive extremes often produce protective compounds that translate into potential benefits for the body. Sea buckthorn is often discussed today in the context of skin nourishment because its oil is used in supplements and topical products, and many people seek it out when they feel like their skin is chronically dry, irritated, or not recovering well. The berries contain nutrients that support the body from the inside, and the oils are frequently used in skincare formulations where people are trying to restore comfort and resilience. One of the reasons sea buckthorn was forgotten in the West is that it grows in regions most people don't live near, such as cold mountain areas and remote climates. It didn't become common because it wasn't easily accessible, not because it lacked value. But today, with global cultivation and modern distribution, sea buckthorn is re-emerging as a serious plant in the wellness and skincare space, especially for people who want support that goes beyond surface-level moisturizers and works more like nourishment. Then there's comfrey, a plant with one of the most vivid folk names in the entire herbal world, bone knit. That name tells a story, because for centuries people used comfrey externally on bruises, sprains, sore joints, and injured tissue, believing it helped the body repair itself faster. Whether it was a farmer with a strained back, a child with a bruise, or someone recovering from a twisted ankle, comfrey became a go-to herb in many traditions because it was widely available and strongly associated with recovery. Modern research has explored compounds in comfrey related to tissue repair and comfort, and topical comfrey products are still used today in various places for muscle and joint support. But comfrey is also a plant that teaches an important lesson. Natural medicine requires knowledge, not just enthusiasm. Comfrey is traditionally used externally, and that detail matters because certain compounds in the plant can be harmful if taken internally. Used responsibly, on the outside of the body, comfrey remains one of the most respected recovery herbs in traditional practice. People often prepare it by infusing the dried root in oil and turning it into a salve, or using a cream made for topical application. Comfrey fell out of common mainstream use partly because of confusion about safe internal versus external use, and partly because modern medicine moved toward imaging, casts, and pharmaceuticals as the primary lens for healing injuries. But for the daily soft tissue wear and tear that happens constantly, bruised muscles, sore joints, minor sprains, comfrey remains a plant with a reputation that refuses to disappear. Mullein is another plant you've probably seen 100 times without realizing what it was. It's tall and dramatic, with fuzzy, soft leaves and a spike of yellow flowers that rises like a torch from the ground. For centuries, mullein was considered one of the most reliable herbs for respiratory support, especially when someone had thick congestion, a stubborn cough, bronchial irritation, or that heavy feeling in the chest that makes every breath feel like work. Traditional herbalists valued mullein because it supports the body's natural clearing process. Instead of simply suppressing a cough and trapping congestion inside, mullein was associated with helping the body move mucus out so the lungs could settle, open, and recover. Traditionally, mullein was prepared as a tea using dried leaves, but the tea was carefully strained to remove the tiny leaf hairs. Some traditions used mullein flower-infused oil for ear discomfort, and other preparations were used for throat and bronchial comfort. Mullein largely disappeared from mainstream use as modern cough syrups and decongestants became common, but many of those products focus on silencing symptoms rather than supporting the body's natural cleanup process. Mullein's value is that it works with your physiology instead of against it. And the best part is that it's still growing wild, still accessible, still free, and still functioning the way it has for centuries, quietly waiting in empty lots and roadsides like a respiratory ally most people never think to recognize. Plantain is next, and this one is almost comical because it's so common that people assume it can't possibly matter. Plantain, the weed, not the fruit, is a low-growing plant with oval leaves and thin flower spikes that thrives in lawns, trails, and disturbed soil everywhere. In many traditions, plantain was considered one of the most dependable first aid plants, especially outdoors. People used fresh leaves on minor cuts, burns, stings, bites, and irritated skin when they needed something immediate. You will find plantain mentioned in folk traditions from multiple cultures, because it grows wherever humans live, and wherever humans live, humans get scrapes, bites, and minor injuries. Plantain is often used fresh by crushing a clean leaf and applying it directly to the area for quick comfort, and it can also be prepared as a strong tea wash for skin support. Modern research has explored plantain for wound and skin supportive properties, and it shows up in some natural topical products. Plantain got forgotten mostly because it's a weed, and we've been trained to remove weeds, not study them. We've also been trained to think medicine is something you buy, not something you learn. But plantain is a reminder that some of the most practical plant knowledge is the simplest, knowing what grows under your feet and what it has been used for when people had nothing else. Yarrow follows, and it carries one of the strongest historical associations with field medicine. Yarrow has been called the soldier's herb because of its long reputation for helping with minor bleeding and supporting wound care. Throughout history, people packed yarrow into wounds, used it as a topical support herb, and relied on it during travel and outdoor work. Yarrow grows widely, producing clusters of tiny white or pink flowers on tall stems, and the above-ground portions have been used in various traditional preparations. The reason yarrow stood out is that it was associated with both immediate and ongoing support, helping the body respond quickly while also supporting the healing process as tissue recovered. Traditional use included applying crushed leaves to minor cuts and scrapes, and in some traditions, yarrow tea was used for fever and general discomfort. It's one of those plants that isn't flashy, but it is respected, and if you spend time outside, the value of knowing yarrow is simple. It's a plant people trusted when they needed help fast and didn't have time to wait. That's why it shows up in so many historical accounts and why it remains part of modern herbal knowledge today. Self-heal is a plant with a name that sounds almost too confident, but that confidence reflects how much trust people placed in it. Self-heal, also called heal-all, was used for wounds, sore throats, mouth irritation, and inflamed tissue, and it was valued as a versatile plant that could support common problems in daily life. Modern research has explored self-heal's supportive properties, and it remains a plant many herbalists respect for its relationship to tissue, comfort, and balance. It grows low in lawns and meadows and produces purple flower spikes that bees love, which means it's often present even in places people don't consider wild. Traditional use often involved making a strong tea and using it as a gargle for sore throats and mouth ulcers, or applying crushed leaves to minor skin issues. One reason self-heal was especially valued is that mouth and throat problems are difficult to treat because the tissue is sensitive and constantly exposed to bacteria. A simple gargle or rinse is a practical approach, and self-heal fit that role in many traditions. Like many weeds, it slipped out of mainstream attention because it's common and not profitable. But for everyday support, its reputation has remained surprisingly strong. Agrimony is next, and it represents a gentle category of plant medicine that people used for tone and comfort, especially in the throat and digestive system. Agrimony produces tall spikes of small yellow flowers and was traditionally used as a gargle for sore throats and mouth irritation, as well as a tea for mild digestive upset. Its tannins create an astringent effect, which in traditional herbal logic means it can help tighten and calm irritated tissues. While modern people often reach for throat sprays and lozenges, older traditions leaned into gargles and rinses because they directly contact the irritated tissue and can bring relief while supporting recovery. Agrimony is the kind of plant that feels old-fashioned until you need it, and then you realize how practical those old methods were. White horehound is one of the most fascinating because it was so effective and widely trusted that people turned it into candy. Before modern cough drops were everywhere, horehound lozenges were a household staple. Horehound is traditionally used for productive coughs and bronchial congestion, and, instead of suppressing the cough reflex, it's associated with supporting the clearing process. This is important because not all coughs are the same. Sometimes the body is trying to get mucus out, and horehound was used in that context. People made strong teas, syrups, and candies, often sweetened with honey, and it remained popular for generations. Horehound disappeared when synthetic cough medicines took over, but it's still grown and used by people who prefer a traditional approach that supports clearing rather than silencing. Boneset closes this section with a strong historical reputation for supporting the body during feverish illnesses. Boneset was a household staple in earlier centuries, especially during seasons when flu-like illnesses swept through communities, and people needed something to help them endure chills, aches, exhaustion, and fever discomfort. Traditionally, boneset was prepared as a hot tea and taken early, and it became associated with the idea of sweating it out while resting. Boneset tea is famously bitter, and many people saw that bitterness as part of its strength. While modern medicine has changed how people manage illness, how much people relied on plant knowledge to get through difficult times. It represents the old approach of supporting the body's process, resting deeply, and using plants as allies rather than treating symptoms as enemies. Blue vervain. The nerve soother. Blue vervain has one of the most fascinating traditional uses in herbal medicine. It was long considered a nervine, meaning a plant that calms and strengthens the nervous system. Verbena hastata and its close relative Verbena officinalis were traditionally used for nervous exhaustion, anxiety, tension, headaches, and insomnia, essentially many of the stress-related problems people face more than ever today. Traditional herbalists describe vervain as a remedy for people who are wound too tight, those who overthink, stay tense, and struggle to relax or sleep. Modern herbal sources and some animal research suggest that vervain may have genuine anxiolytic, anti-anxiety effects, helping calm nervous tension without causing heavy sedation. The plant grows wild in wet meadows and ditches, producing tall spikes of tiny purple-blue flowers. The aerial parts are harvested and dried for tea. Because the taste is quite bitter, it is often blended with more pleasant herbs or sweetened with honey. Traditionally, a cup of vervain tea was taken in the evening to wind down from stress and prepare for sleep, or during the day for ongoing nervous tension. It does not knock you out like sleeping pills. Instead, it gently helps the nervous system relax and reset. Vervain gradually fell out of favor as pharmaceutical anxiety medications and sleep aids became common. However, those often come with dependence, side effects, and rebound issues. Vervain offers a gentler approach for mild to moderate stress. It may not be strong enough for severe anxiety, but it is well suited for everyday stress that quietly builds up. Think of it as the friend who puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "It's okay to relax now." Elecampane, the deep lung tonic. Elecampane is a classic herb for serious respiratory support. Inula helenium was traditionally used when someone had a deep, stubborn lung infection, the kind of wet, productive cough that refuses to resolve, along with chronic bronchitis or lingering chest congestion after pneumonia. The root contains compounds called sesquiterpene lactones, which have cough-calming and antimicrobial effects. Modern herbal reviews describe its use for chronic cough, asthma, and lung disease, and research confirms antimicrobial activity against certain respiratory pathogens. Elecampane grows as a tall perennial with large leaves and sunflower-like yellow flowers. The thick roots are harvested in the fall, dried, and prepared as decoctions, long simmered teas, or tinctures. The flavor is complex, slightly bitter, warming, and aromatic. Traditionally, elecampane was taken in small, frequent doses over weeks or even months. It is not a quick fix. It functions as a deep lung tonic that supports long-term respiratory healing and strengthening. Herbalists often combined it with other lung-supporting herbs for persistent respiratory infections. Elecampane became less common, partly because it requires patience. It works slowly and deeply rather than providing instant relief, and antibiotics seemed faster. Yet for chronic, lingering respiratory weakness, elecampane offers something antibiotics do not: support for rebuilding and strengthening lung tissue. It does not simply fight infection, it supports recovery. Toothache plant, the instant numbing herb. Toothache plant lives up to its name. The Spilanthes species contain a compound called spilanthol that produces an immediate tingling and numbing sensation in the mouth. When a fresh flower or leaf is chewed, the mouth can become numb within seconds. Traditional healers used it for toothaches, mouth ulcers, sore throats, and other painful oral conditions. Research confirms its local anesthetic and analgesic effects, and it remains in use in some traditional medicine systems for oral pain relief. The plant is a small annual with yellow and red cone-shaped flowers that resemble tiny spaceships. The flowers contain the strongest numbing effect, though the leaves are also effective. It grows easily in warm climates and containers. Traditionally, at the first sign of tooth pain or a mouth ulcer, a fresh flower or leaf was chewed and allowed to coat the affected area. The numbing effect is immediate and may last 30 minutes or longer. While it does not cure the underlying issue, it provides meaningful pain relief while the cause is addressed. Toothache plant fell out of favor in the West because commercial numbing gels and pain relievers became widely available. However, for natural pain management or situations where nothing else is accessible, This plant is remarkable. The effect is so strong and immediate that first-time users are often surprised. It is like having a natural dental anesthetic growing in your garden. Oregon grape. Oregon grape is not actually a grape but a spiny-leaved evergreen shrub with yellow flowers and blue berries. Mahonia aquifolium stands out because it is one of the few herbs with solid clinical evidence supporting its use for chronic skin conditions such as psoriasis. Multiple studies show that topical Oregon grape extract can significantly improve psoriasis and atopic dermatitis symptoms. The plant contains berberine and other alkaloids with antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects on the skin. Traditionally, Oregon grape was used both topically for skin problems and internally for digestive concerns. The bright yellow inner bark of the roots and stems is the medicinal portion. It can be made into a salve or cream, and commercial preparations are available for psoriasis. The effect is not immediate. Consistent use over weeks is necessary, but improvements can be meaningful. Chronic skin conditions like psoriasis and eczema can be frustrating and resistant to treatment. Oregon grape offers a botanical option supported by both traditional use and modern research. It became less known partly because it grows primarily in the Pacific Northwest and was not widely available elsewhere until recently. For individuals dealing with chronic, inflamed, scaly skin, it remains worth consideration. Yellow dock, the liver and digestion ally. Yellow dock is an alterative herb, traditionally called a blood purifier, meaning it supports the body's natural elimination processes. Rumex crispus root has been used for centuries for sluggish digestion, constipation, and skin issues connected to poor elimination. The root contains bitter compounds and anthraquinones that stimulate bile production and digestive function. Modern herbal reviews associate yellow dock with supporting liver function, improving digestion, and helping chronic skin issues that improve with better internal balance. Yellow dock grows as a tall weed with a deep taproot and reddish seed heads. The root is harvested in fall, dried, and used in small amounts as tea or tincture. Its bitterness is part of its effectiveness, as bitter flavors stimulate digestive responses. Traditionally, small regular doses were taken to improve digestion and relieve constipation. Over time, many people noticed improvements in persistent skin problems as digestion improved. Rather than forcing elimination, yellow dock supports natural function. It works gently, helping the body do what it is designed to do. Usnea, the wilderness antibiotic. Usnea is not a plant but a lichen that grows hanging from trees like pale green hair, which gives it the nickname Old Man's Beard. Despite its humble appearance, it is a powerful traditional antimicrobial. Usnea contains usnic acid and related compounds with strong antimicrobial activity. Research shows effectiveness against various bacteria, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. Traditionally, fresh Usnea was crushed and applied to wounds or made into a tincture for use as an antiseptic wash. It grows in relatively unpolluted areas, especially in mountainous regions and the Pacific Northwest. Because it grows slowly, it should be harvested sustainably. In wilderness settings, fresh Usnea could be moistened and applied directly to minor wounds when no first aid supplies were available. Modern research confirms that this traditional use has real antimicrobial basis. Barberry, the ancient antimicrobial. Barberry has been used for over 2,000 years and is gaining renewed attention. Berberis vulgaris contains berberine, one of the most studied plant compounds in modern herbal medicine. Berberine demonstrates antimicrobial activity against bacteria, fungi, and parasites. It also has anti-inflammatory effects, supports digestive health, and has been shown to help with infectious diarrhea. Recent research highlights metabolic benefits, including improved blood sugar and cholesterol regulation. Traditional systems such as Persian, Ayurvedic, and Chinese medicine used barberry for digestive infections, liver conditions, and inflammatory disorders. The bright yellow inner bark contains the highest concentration of berberine and can be prepared as tea, tincture, or extract. Barberry represents a rare alignment between traditional use and modern scientific validation. With growing concerns about antibiotic resistance, berberine-containing plants are receiving renewed interest. Red clover, the field medicine flower. Red clover is so common that it is often overlooked as medicine. Trifolium pratense has been used for centuries for skin conditions, inflammation, and women's health concerns. It contains isoflavones with mild estrogenic effects, and research supports its use for menopausal hot flashes. Traditionally, it was used internally and topically for chronic skin conditions such as eczema and psoriasis. The flowers also have anti-inflammatory properties. The flower heads can be harvested from clean, untreated areas, dried, and made into tea. The flavor is mild and slightly sweet. Red clover was often taken long-term for chronic issues, offering gentle and nourishing support over time. Sassafras, a historical remedy with modern caution. Sassafras has a long medicinal history. Indigenous communities used sassafras root and bark for fevers, rheumatism, and digestive complaints, and it later became famous as a root beer flavoring. However, sassafras contains safrole, a compound associated with potential liver toxicity and carcinogenic effects in large amounts. Because of this, internal use is now restricted in many places. While its traditional uses were valued and real, modern research has highlighted safety concerns. Sassafras serves as an important reminder that natural does not always mean safe for regular use, and that traditional knowledge and modern science must work together to guide safe application. Meadowsweet. Meadowsweet, often called the original aspirin, perfectly represents everything we've talked about today. Filipendula ulmaria is the plant that modern aspirin was based on. Long before synthetic aspirin existed, people used meadowsweet for pain, fever, inflammation, and even stomach irritation. Meadowsweet contains salicylates, the same type of compounds that aspirin is derived from. When chemists first synthesized aspirin, they worked from salicylic acid found in plants like meadowsweet and willow bark. Here's the fascinating twist. While aspirin is known to irritate the stomach, meadowsweet was traditionally used to soothe stomach inflammation while also relieving pain and fever. The flowers and leaves are harvested and dried to make tea. The flavor is pleasant, slightly sweet, with a light almond-like aroma. Modern research confirms its anti-inflammatory properties, thanks to its salicylates and other supportive plant compounds. Traditionally, meadowsweet tea was used for headaches, arthritis, general pain, fever, and digestive discomfort. Meadowsweet grows in wet meadows and along streams, producing creamy white clusters of fragrant flowers in the summer. It has been used throughout Europe for centuries and was once one of the most important pain-relieving herbs before modern pharmaceuticals took over. What makes this plant such a powerful ending to the list is what it represents. We took nature's medicine, isolated a single compound, synthesized it, and ended up with something less balanced and more problematic than the original whole plant. Meadowsweet offers pain relief without the same level of stomach irritation commonly associated with isolated aspirin. That's the genius of plant medicine. Nature's formulations often work in harmony, with compounds that buffer and balance one another. Meadowsweet faded from common use because aspirin became cheap, standardized, and widely available. But for those who struggle with aspirin's stomach side effects or prefer a more balanced approach to pain and inflammation, meadowsweet is still growing quietly in meadows and ditches, still doing what it has done for thousands of years. It remains a reminder that sometimes the natural version truly is better than the synthetic copy. If you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten healing plants and learned something new, consider supporting the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments and let others know which type of plant remedies interest you most: wound healers, respiratory supports, or traditional pain relievers.